recorded live.
Hi, everybody. It's Thursday. It's January 14th. It's time for our Thursday night call, and tonight our guest is Ken W. He was in the chat room last Thursday contributing his 2 cents. Here tonight, well, you said you're going to talk about the birth certificate, right?
Right.
Are you there? Hey, Ken.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about the birth certificate.
Okay. First of all, let me say Happy New Year to everybody. I hope they had a good week. So far, so good. Seems. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself and your understanding of the birth certificate.
Okay. Well, I don't consider myself any better than anybody else. I'm sure we got all have our own stories to tell. But I ran into some legal problems probably around 5 years ago, and caused a lot of loss. And so that got me started on going down that road to find out what was going on. And I listened to all kinds of people, Winston Shrout, Dean Clifford, Bill T, I think his name is. And, well, I tried some of that. I'm sorry?
Excuse me 1 second. Let me turn off my Skype. I think somebody's passing stuff. Okay. Just go ahead.
Okay. So I started taking some of these legal theories and applying them, putting them through a little test to and then observe what happens. And after hearing and listening to these people talk, I eventually come to the conclusion that they were missing something, or I was missing something. And so I started listening to judges and lawyers instead of other folk. And what I discovered is that a lot of attorneys don't know what's going on. There's tons of them that sit there and said they couldn't understand why the judge ruled the way he ruled. Well, a lot of it makes sense to me now that I know what's going on. And I was listening to the Federal Judicial Center, where they have videos for judges and clerks and bankruptcy lawyers, well, all different kinds of law. And I was sitting there listening to something about bankruptcy and revised Article 9, and one of the gentlemen spoke about the birth certificate. And he basically tells you what the birth certificate is. And after doing a little bit more research, I applied what I had learned and, to test it out myself and then observe. And what I found is that, yes, I was correct in my definition of what the birth certificate is. And I'll give you that definition right now. A birth certificate is a public record showing the organization was organized, showing that it exists. The legal name of that registered organization is your all-capital letter name, okay? And why do I say that? I'm sure everybody wants a little bit of proof. Am I right? I would think. Well, anyways, so I got some things together, and I brought a declaratory judgment in the state of Kentucky because I wanted to know what my rights and duties were regarding that instrument. All right, and that's what it is, folks. It's an instrument. It's a public record showing the organization was organized. and I'm going to get into what that organization is and your relationship to it. The reason I know this, Angela, I believe I sent you an MP3 with a judge speaking about it, and if someone likes, I could post a link in there to the
yeah,
judge
why don't you?
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
sorry,
do that.
Angela? Do that? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get that out right here. I was just sitting there listening to these guys talk, and I listened to a lot of them. I really, folks, I stopped listening to everybody else, and I started going straight to the horse's mouth and listening to these people talk. And now that I understand how everything works and interstate commerce and legislative dictum of Congress, I'm hoping to help you fine folk out.
Okay.
Just give me one
The
second.
new things. We'll hear it. But I should tell you, that our shady group, I say that all the time. We've heard Winston Trout and gone to his seminars and all the rest, on the birth certificate. So we're not, completely blind to it.
Right. Well, there's the link right there. If somebody wishes to go look at that, check it out. It's start at the 43rd minute and 25 seconds, and they're going to talk all about the name. They're going to talk about the legal
about
name,
what?
the nickname. Huh?
Okay. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I just put a mark in 25 seconds.
And I would advise everyone to watch the entire thing, because these people drafted the Uniform Commercial Code. These people are the nation's experts on the Uniform Commercial Code. They helped write it, okay, especially Article 9. And Article 9 does govern all security interest in personal property or any interest therein. So I'm sitting there listening to this guy, and the woman starts talking about the legal name of the registered organization. And she goes, and keep in mind, this is a law professor. She goes, yes, getting the correct legal name of a registered organization, and a registered organization is an organization where a state must maintain a public record showing the organization was organized. And then Judge Bruce Markell immediately says, he said, yes, I've heard it referred to as the state issues a birth certificate. Okay? And, well, after a few go-arounds in court, with this knowledge and having the only success that I've had, I dug a little further, and I actually found out how to separate myself from that entity. Now, because we all know it's an entity, right? Correct?
Every time you ask me a question, I have to unmute my...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Assume I'm... Huh? Okay.
Hey, I'm sorry. I'll keep going. Okay, well, if we all know what an entity is, and we've all come to the conclusion, anybody who's been studying this long enough has come to the conclusion that, hey, that's not me. Hey, that's a person, and that is a person other than me. And you're absolutely right. It is a registered organization. And if you go look up the word registered organization in the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9, it'll say it is an organization where the state maintains the public record showing the organization was organized and under what law the entity was created. Okay? And if you go to Article 1, it'll have the definition of organization. And an organization is a person other than an individual. So I come to the conclusion a long time ago that, hey, at the very least, I'm a individual, and I could never be an organization. he was a bit okay. But so I went into court, and I wanted to figure out what happened. So after I found out what the registered organization is, and it could be any number of things. It could be a corporation, an estate, a trust, and I'm sure you guys have heard the terms. But the one I want to point specifically at is the governmental agencies. Now, I don't say governmental agencies, but it does say government, governmental, and governmental, but it's in there. And that's what I discovered. That's what that is. It's a state agency, all right? And this state agency was created when somebody filled out a report pursuant to Kentucky Revised Statute 213.051. And let me remind folks that I'm just familiar with my state statutes, and this is a private land state as opposed to a public land state. Okay, a big difference. When I found out and had that, that agency, I went down to get a operator's license. Like I said, I wanted to test my theory. I wanted to observe, the experiment that I was executing. So I went down to the courthouse here in this county. It's just a little bitty old county. That's the DMV too. So if you want a driver's license or pay your fees, you do it through the little courthouse there, the clerk's court. So I went down there, and I went down there with my birth certificate. Now, keep in mind, folks, that when I say birth certificate, I'm actually referring to the certified copy that you have. All right? You have never seen the birth certificate, and you probably never will, but you have a certified copy of the facts that's on the report. It's your birth certificate looks nothing like that. It's just a fancy piece of paper with information on it, and deceiving information,
the
too.
Baby's footprints on it.
I'm sorry?
What about the one with the baby's footprints on it?
Right. I'm going to get to that right here in a second, but I wanted to talk about the state agency, and then I'll get into why that state agency was created, okay? So I went down to the courthouse, and I put my birth certificate down on the thing, along with an affidavit saying that I did not wish to operate any kind of state agency or government agency, and that I merely want an operator's license as an individual. Well, let me tell you, that didn't go too great. As a matter of fact, I didn't get no ID at all, and I was directed toward the Department of Commerce, or here in Kentucky, as it's known, the Department of Transportation. And but before I did get out of there, the woman told me that, and this was the circuit court clerk, told me that, because I pointed at the birth certificate, I said, "This isn't me, is it?" And she said, "No." I said, "This can never be me." She said, "No." I said, "This is an organization." She said, "Yes, it's a state agency." Okay. So I did some more research about state agencies and how it was created. So now I'm going to go back to where you was talking about, Angela, is the creation of this document. Because a lot of people call it a trust, they call it an estate, they call it, a couple of different things. And there is a trust. There is an estate, but they've done pretty good putting a layer over top of it, how they hide that trust under the guise of an agency. All right? So I looked up birth certificates in the Kentucky Revised Statutes. And under Kentucky Revised Statute 213.046, it says, "No birth certificate shall be held to be complete unless it has all the information called for in that section and in 213.051. Well, I'm going to go check out 213.051. And for some of you out there, you might want to go check that out. It's KRS 213.051. If you want to know what the contents of your birth certificate are, it's right there. And before I go any farther, I also want to point toward Kentucky Revised Statute 213. I think it's .010, but it's under the definitions. And under those definitions, file means a presentation, and register means acceptance. And after examining and reading it, KRS, Kentucky Revised Statute, Douglas, after examining the vital statistic chapter and some of the other trust chapters, it became obvious to me that somehow some report was filed. And when it was filed, it was accepted. So when the people say that the doctors or whatever say, well, the law says you have to register your child, that is a complete and utter lie. It's a falsity. But keep in mind that this is Kentucky, and I can't vouch for every state. But here in Kentucky, file means presentation, and register means acceptance. So when they say registration is required, it's on behalf of the state. They have to accept. If you offer, they have to accept. All right? So they tricked you, however you want to, deceived you, or however you want to see it. Most people would call it fraud. And well, at this point, this gave you a character of nationality. It binded you first time in your infant life with a legal relationship. And do you know what that document is called? It's called matrix. If you go up in Black's Law Dictionary and you look up the word matrix, it is the original or protocol of an instrument from which all copies must come from. I think that's a little weird, but that's our problem. So when we were little, our mothers were tricked into filling out this thing saying that they abandoned us, and that the state then assumed custody of an infant of unknown parentage, and they reported on a form who they put that child into custody for, you know, who the custodian of the child is, and that is, of course, your mother and her father. That's why they're considered the custodians, the custodial parents. And that's another word to go look up as parents, because one of the definitions of parent is an agency with which a child is placed for care. So when this was done, this created what we all refer to as the trust. All right, the state assumed custody, and they put the child into your mom and dad's care, or mother's, whatever the case may be, and named him as the custodian. If you go look at 213.051, it clearly states on the contents of birth certificate, name given to the child by the custodian of the child, not the mother or the woman. It's the that's where they named you as custodian. That's why you have a maiden name. And this is how the first legal transaction with you as an infant happened. This has created your first legal relationship. And this relationship that was created finds its way out of the 14th Amendment and the New Deal. And that's what I just want to stay on the birth certificate. I'm not going to go all the way back to the 14th Amendment and talk about that, but I'm going to stay on the birth certificate. And anyways, so this trust was created. Now, in Hamilton County, Ohio, if you go to the Hamilton County Probate Court and you go to the website, it's called probatect.org, probatect.org. You will notice that the probate court is responsible for all birth certificates, if you know what I mean. They can change your name, they can register, they can handle the estate and everything. And this is the trust that was created. Now, the agency that was created and it comes from the United States because illegitimate children, and that's what they claim you are, and I want to stop and talk about that for a second, just here in a minute. But illegitimate children are automatically citizens of the United States under the 14th Amendment. And the New Deal applies to them. In a way, it's kind of giving them a right where they would have none, and that's what I want to discuss now. If you're of unknown parentage, and I want some of you guys to ask your questions yourself these questions honestly. If you're of unknown parentage, can you be the posterity of the people? If you're of unknown parentage, who can you inherit from? And as we all know, that rights come from property. You know, the more property you have, the more rights you're going to have. So when they claimed you were this infant of unknown parentage and they assumed custody, they knew damn well what they were doing, and that's exactly why they did it. You know, to give you a separation from the people, to give you somehow that you would not have the rights, or at least the constitutionally rights secured by the Constitution, and you would only have commercial rights as you are operating an agency of the United States. Now, when you take that birth certificate, and you take that birth certificate down to the DMV along with your insurance card, your social insurance card, here's what's really going down. Your status is not that of a landowner or one of the people of the state of Kentucky or whatever state you think you may be. But it is also, when you take a birth certificate down, you're actually showing the state that this organization was organized. And you're also taking that Social Security card, and you're also saying, I'm bonded and insured to operate this agency of the United States here in this state. And so you sign this little document, and that little document you sign, driver's license, voter registration, however they get you tied into it, that is where you accept appointment for service of process for the registered organization. And when you take that birth certificate down there and you present it before the court or DMV, you're saying this registered organization exists, and I am here registering as the registered agent for the registered organization. And that's where your problems with Congress come in at, is right there, because now you're operating a foreign entity, which is the United States. If anybody don't know, the United States is located in the District of Columbia. That'd be Kentucky Revised Statute 355, 9-307. And if you also look at that location of debtor, we understand that once it's an organization, go read 9-307 of the Uniform Commercial Code, and it's going to tell you the location of the debtor. And as you might know, you're not an organization. You may be party to it. Excuse me. You may be party to it, but you can never be the organization. And when we use the birth certificate and we sign for it, we've just accepted appointment for service of process for that entity, which was created in the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia is a state. It's a foreign state. So this entity that was created now has a registered agent in the state where you are. This is how the court is looking at you. You're here as the registered agent for the registered organization, and now you just converted your residence or your place of abode or your domicile into what's called a registered office. What I would like to point to next is the entity itself. We all know that it's an entity. It could never be us. And in order for that entity to do you to Kentucky Revised Statute 14A. And this governs any entity that want to do business here in the Commonwealth has to register, and all the provisions are laid out right there. Okay, you have to have a certificate of authority, which is what your certified copy of called a certification of birth constitutes, and then you have to be licensed. You have to be insured, bonded to do business. You have to be insured. That's what your Social Security insurance card is. And now you're here doing business in Kentucky in the name of a foreign entity. You have just now assumed the role of registered agent, and your residence is now the registered office. And that puts you right dab smack in the middle of interstate commerce. And that's the worst place to be. Once you've entered into interstate commerce, and I don't think a lot of people understand that Congress has full power and exclusive jurisdiction to regulate interstate commerce. If you're in interstate commerce, you're under the legislative dictum of Congress. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But they tricked us into getting into that position, right? We all say it's fraud. Now, let me just go over one more thing before I move on to how I got my declaratory judgment, and so I got some things, stated for me that makes me feel good. It is not a fraud, all right? Lots of people have benefited greatly from the creation of this trust and the agency with the United States that was created. A lot of people have benefited greatly. But however, if you have suffered injury like me, you feel like you want some remedy. You want a little bit of payback. You want to get what's coming to yours because you feel defrauded. And a lot of people say that contracts with infants are void. That's not true. Contracts with infants are not void, only voidable. And there's only one person who can void that contract under agreement. And you could plead the Baby Act. If you go to Black's Law Dictionary, under B, first word in there is Baby Act. All right? So some of you people that's an available plea that you can enter, the Baby Act. I plead the Baby Act.
Have you done that? Have you voided your...
But I did reference it. I didn't plead the Baby Act, but I did reference it. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Angela.
In a court case or what?
Yeah, well, once I found out what was going on and everything, I still had a couple of questions left. I had a pretty good idea what was going on, but I still had a few questions left. So I brought a declaratory judgment against the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the County of Rockcastle. And I would point to Kentucky Revised Statutes, Chapter 418, is one under what provisions I brought my declaratory judgment on, and the Declaratory Judgment Act. And the sole purpose is for the Declaratory Judgment Act is for a creation of remedy. That's the sole purpose, so that you can create your own remedy. And so I brought the declaratory judgment without written pleadings, which is allowed. That means when I went into that court, them two attorneys didn't know what was about to smack them upside the head. They had no idea. They had no clue. They were dumbfounded. But I went in there and I explained to the man occupying the judge's position. I explained to him what I knew. I told him that I'm aware that this entity is not me, that it was created based on falsities. I'm not of unknown parentage, and I even provided evidence, that showed my heritage all the way back to 1620-something here in America. And I also told him that I know that I'm being considered as the registered agent or the trustee of a bankrupt estate, and that I was just looking for some clarification as to my rights and duties if I should use that instrument. And the attorneys argued that there was no actual controversy, and that the court didn't have jurisdiction because my birth certificate was issued from Ohio. And so after I sit there, and keep in mind, these lawyers are sitting there, they're whispering in each other's ear. They don't know what to do about me. And after everything was said and done, it took about 45 minutes in the court, empty court. The judge said, "Well, I'll give you my ruling and declaration within 2 weeks." Well, about a week and a half later, I got my declaratory judgment in the mail, and it proved everything that I needed to know. And he also threw me a bone to tell me how to get rid of the agency. And believe it or not, folks, it's as simple resignation. That's it.
Resignation? Go explain a little more about that.
Well, when you use that birth certificate, like I said, that's when a legal relationship is created. I take it down there. Now, you guys think it's to get that so that you could drive a car, that you can travel by car or whatever. No, that operator's license, that driver's license, is a license to operate that foreign entity in this state. Now, keep in mind, there's no law that says you have to operate that entity, right? But you can take it down there. Now that you've got the birth certificate and the insurance, now you're authorized and licensed to do business as this entity in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. All right, so this is what makes you become the registered agent. Once you have become the registered agent, now you are appointed, and you have signed for it. You have just accepted appointment for service of process for that entity. Yes, Circle, correct. Simple resignation, and I'll point to that here in a minute. So now this state agency, which is a foreign entity located and domiciled and a resident citizen of the United States, which is located in the District of Columbia, now this enterprise, this person has a registered agent in the state where you are. Now you just become the registered agent for the registered organization, and you just put down your residence or your place of abode as the registered office. And that puts you right dab smack in the middle of interstate commerce. And if anybody's been studying this long enough, that's not where you want to be. You want to get out of that interstate commerce because that puts you exclusively under the jurisdiction of Congress and their unlimited power and authority to regulate interstate commerce. All right? Any questions?
So where do you want to be then?
What do you mean where do I want to be?
Well,
I don't
you don't
want to be in
the commerce, but
right.
So where do you want to be?
You want to be in America, upon the land.
Is that under the common law?
Yes, absolutely. And some people argue common law. Let me explain something to folks, right? You don't have to take my word for it, but common law is commercial law. It is contracts. Common law is personal relationships. It's just that when they formed the Constitution, these people created the government for themselves and their posterity, okay? And Great Britain and the Queen and all those over the last 200 years have infiltrated and taken over and done away with all that and are instituting their admiralty practice here in America under the Treaty of 1783, because one of the conditions was that the English courts maintained the right to hear all admiralty cases. You know, that was part of the agreement that they had. So and everything in commerce falls under admiralty maritime, especially if you're interstate commerce. Now, if you're not in interstate commerce, none of federal jurisdiction applies to you. It doesn't apply to you. And if you give me a second here, I'll point to where you can, where it shows you how to resign, because in my declaratory judgment, the judge said I have the right to terminate any agency as principal, and any agency, and can terminate any agency by simple resignation. And that got me thinking, so that's when I went to, read 14A, yes, 14A dot 4 dash 010 through 4-050. And it says in 14A dot 4 dash 030, resignation of registered agent. And this is what I did after I got my declaratory judgment, is I sent a letter to the Secretary of State stating that certain facts have become known to me, and that the organization wasn't complying with the provisions, so that I'm no longer going to be held responsible, liable for its debt, obligations, and duties. And I just laid it out there in the letter. I think I got the letter on my computer. But I just did a letter saying, hey, I've resigned from this agency styled, and all capital letter name. I will no longer accept service or process for this entity as registered agent, and I now assume the person, office, and duty of general executor of the estate of the agency, and demanded that
did they acknowledge?
Yes, I have letters from the governor's office and the secretary's state office and the county court, all addressing me as the executor of the estate of my all capital letter legal birth name. But like I said, it's not my name. It's the legal name of a registered organization.
Well, if anybody has any questions, put your hand up, press mine. Interesting. There's a lot of questions on the chat board.
Well, shoot them at me.
Well, can someone type number that Ken mentioned? What number?
It's Kentucky Revised Statute 14A. Kentucky Revised Statute 14A governs all businesses that do business here in the Commonwealth. If you're an entity, yes, Douglas, 14A. If you're an entity, the law requires you to register, all right, to do business here in this state. And, the entity itself can't do shit. It ain't got no arms, it ain't got no legs, it ain't got no lips, it can't do crap. So it must have a representative or a registered agent. And I'm sure people has looked at this, and they know what I'm talking about, the registered agent. For instance, if you want to sue the county or you want to sue an agency of the government, there's three main people we talk to. It's the judge executive, the attorney general, and the registered agent for whatever agency you're having problems with. But if you go look at 14A, it governs that entity, and if you go through and read those, you'll get you'll see what I'm talking about. Just remember that you're the registered agent. That's why you have to accept service of process for that entity. Now, if you haven't come to the conclusion that you're not that person and that person can never be you, you probably need to do a little bit of study. But however, there is a relationship that people don't recognize, and that's right. Yeah, that's what I did, Douglas. Yes, I resigned the position of registered agent, and I will no longer accept service of process for that entity, and I will no longer be responsible for his debt, obligations, and duties. I'm not going to give out my private stuff. I like to stay private. And by the way, that's why you're a public person and you have to deal with public debt. And that's why people are having problems because they're in the public. Now I am now on the private side. The judge. Let me see if I can find it here real quick.
Do you have a website or anything?
No.
I can make a page if you want to post some of your stuff. I'll put it up.
I can send you. I'd have to. I did put my documents on. I'd have to scrub them. You know what I mean? Because I don't want my personal information. Right.
That's fine. Send me everything. I don't mind. I'll put it up there.
All right. Here's what the judge said. This matter having been brought before the court pursuant to KRS 418 and the Declaratory Judgment Act by movement seeking to obtain judgment concerning and regarding an instrument issued by the state of Ohio and bearing a seal thereof, movement has also moved the court without written pleadings in accordance with KRS 418.015 and has demanded judgment according to law and the rules of equity. Movement has presented to this court an instrument issued by the state of Ohio and bearing a seal thereof and has stated with parallel evidence concerns regarding the use of such instrument and believes his rights would be affected by statutes, ordinances, government regulations, etc. if he should use said instrument. Movement also claims to be an interested person of a non-fiduciary character in the organization and the estate thereof. And it goes on down. It lists the respondents' argument where they argued that no controversy existed and that the court is in one of jurisdiction, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes to the findings. And it says, this court having examined all evidence presented and in accordance with law and rules of equity, this court finds it has no power or authority to grant movement's demand for relief, asking for a determination of construction or obtain any judgment or declaration of rights and duties concerning the status and relationship between the movement and the issuer of the instrument in question when involving another state. Proper venue is within the jurisdiction of the organization. Movement's demand for declaration of rights and duties and decreed judgment concerning the instrument at issue are dismissed without prejudice. Now, I lost that part, but here's the second part coming up. Movement's motion addressing his rights to be affected by statute, ordinance, government regulation, etc., is valid. And this court finds movement has satisfied all statutory requirements in regards to the issue of a statute affecting his rights. Movement is entitled to a declaration of his rights and duties when the use of an instrument at issue creates a legal relationship and status within the state of its use. Movement's petition for declaration of rights and status is granted. And it goes on to say, it is hereby declared by this court. Me, I'm not going to say, my name, but KW is a private citizen and enjoys all rights, benefits, privileges, and immunities secured by the constitutions and laws of Kentucky and the United States of America. KW has no obligation to use any instrument against his will. KW is under no disability within this state and is of age and competent. KW is subject to all laws enforced within this state. KW has no legal duty or obligation to operate any state agency within the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but shall be licensed if he should. KW has the legal right and power to rescind any appointment of agency as principal and may terminate any agency by simple resignation subject to other provisions of law.
That's cool. Send me that.
But yeah, but that's, there's no way I can go into everything, but the basics I just wanted to get across to everybody is that the birth certificate is a public record, and it shows an organization was organized. Your legal relationship to that organization when you use it is that of a registered agent for service of process. But that doesn't make it all bad, because if you go read the duties and obligations of a registered agent, they're pretty simple. You know what your obligations are? Forward to the entity for which you are the registered agent any service of process, notice, or demand.
Yep.
But do you know where to send that to?
What? Send what?
Well, let's say you got an entity. Now, keep in mind, this is after the fact that I've done what I've done, and this kind of new stuff that I can't try out, all right, because, I've done resign for the agency. Although here in January I am pushing for a declaratory judgment in the state of Ohio to determine my relationship to this organization. Kentucky judge said he couldn't do it because, the birth certificate was issued by the state of Ohio. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Kentucky judge, he couldn't touch it. He said, proper venues in Ohio and the jurisdiction of organization. So I got something coming up there, and if I don't go there, if it doesn't work out there and I don't get it, then I know exactly that I have to go to the District of Columbia to file my suit, because that's where the entity is located at.
What are you suing them for?
Kentucky Revised Statute 355.9-307 and the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9-307. It says, if a debtor is an organization that has more than one place of business, it is located at its chief executive office. Now, we've determined that that's an organization. Is it an organization with more than one place of business? Yes, because, Angela, you didn't issue those bonds traded on the stock market associated with that public record and those legal entity identifiers. You didn't issue those instruments. So now we know it's an organization that has more than one place of business. And you're the registered agent. Well, what does the registered agent do? Well, he sends the shit back, if anybody's ever operated an agency, such as an insurance agent or some other kind of agent, sometimes there's agreements, sometimes they're not. But when Walmart gets sued, if you're the registered agent, do you take care of it, or do you send it to the chief executive office of Walmart and let him handle it? Well, that's what you're allowed to do.
To the chief executive.
That's right, and that's what you are allowed to do. When you get served papers, you need to send it to the chief executive office of your state.
The Secretary of State or the governor or who?
No, the chief executive
Who would
office.
that be?
The executor of the estate called the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That's the chief magistrate, governor. Governor's office. Where,
Yeah.
But I would also say, but now let me keep in mind. Let me clarify a couple of things. This does not apply to everyone. If your parents have a freehold, chances are your birth certificate is going to reflect a different status. all right? And chances are you don't even need a birth certificate because you have a freehold. It's like Donald Trump. Do you think Donald Trump needs to show ID? Do you think George Soros or David Rockefeller needs to show ID?
No.
Right. So, and
they have their own cars with the drivers. And
that's right. That's right. But once you understand the entity, that it's an organization, and yes, there is a trust, and yes, there is an estate. It just so happens that you are the estate of that agency. So, like in family court, what really goes on is you're in a commercial court dealing with corporation and business. And the creditor, the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, the creditor of the estate of the child, is bringing to court saying, hey, you guys aren't taking care of the assets of the trust. And as you're the custodians, and we're the trustee, although I would say trustee de untort. They assume the position of a fiduciary relationship, and we really should hold them accountable to that position because they were invented for our benefit, and they've turned it around to make us of unknown parentage so that we would not have rights, right? Your birthright. You know what a birthright is, right?
You tell me.
What kind of birthright do you get when you're of unknown parentage? You don't get none. So this is why the state gave you a person, because persons are inherited. They go down the line, inherited. My father's person, I will inherit my father's person, and my son will inherit my person, and we inherited ours from our grandfather and his grandfather and his grandfather. Okay. I can take some questions if you like.
Does anyone have a question? Press *8. We have Virginia. Go ahead, Northern Virginia. You've been unmuted. Happy New Year.
Hi, Angela. Happy New Year.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi. I'm sorry I got on the call late, but I wanted to ask the speaker, what was your purpose in taking this to court? What were you trying to accomplish?
To determine for myself in writing what my rights and duties and obligations were pertaining to that instrument.
Okay.
And that's what the birth certificate is. When I say birth certificate, I mean the certified copy of the facts on record. That is no way a copy of the file on record. That is a fancied up document with deceiving words on it, meant to get you to believe something that isn't true. And that, I'm sure we all heard of parent companies, parent corporations, child companies, brother and sister corporations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these are parent agencies, brother agencies, and mother agencies, and father agencies.
Okay. Did you have any? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you, did you have anything, anyone moving on you, any court cases or anyone coming after you that you were trying to clear up or anything?
I had some stints in the traffic court because, I was like a lot of people, hell, man, I don't like these guys. I ain't driving without a license, So I went to court, and I listened to a lot of these people talking about, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. Well, I kept on getting my butt in trouble, all right? It wasn't working quite the way out like everybody says it does on talk show. But since I've resigned, I sent the Secretary of State letter of resignation. I have had no problems. I've been to court 3 times. I don't drive with tags on my car. I drive my own tag on my car that says non-commercial, tax exempt, no agency, private property. And I've had several encounters getting pulled over, and I've been to court twice. And this is another thing. is that in one of the earlier findings, the court did rule that I was operating a state agency. Now, of course, I asked the judge when the judge said that. Well, he said, "Well, the court finds that you are operating a state agency." I was like, "Well, hold on, Judge." I say, "Well, that brings a whole bunch of other questions. What is the name of that state agency? Where was that state agency created? What state are you talking about?" According to the trust code. So that's why I asked in my declaratory judgment. However, the judge turned me down as far as answering any questions as my relationship to that organization, because he's a Kentucky judge and that instrument was issued in Ohio. So he pretty much saying, "Well, I don't know what you have to go ask them."
Okay, so have you noticed anything different now that you have already gone through this process? And,
well, I know cops and shit don't want to talk to me about nothing.
That's always good. That's always good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had them come to me, and they'd be like, "Well, what are you doing here? What's your name?" I'd be like, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't talk to police officers."
Well, I'm just curious if they are going to put you on the do not detain or do not touch list or whatever that list is called.
Well, folks, to me, I pretty much discussed what I know. And there's a difference of what I know and what I believe. And, you're talking about the detainment list. Well, I never understood the Bible until I sat down with a law dictionary and read that damn thing. To me, look, and here's another thing. If you go look up the word mark in the legal dictionary, it says evidence, token, or proof. And if you go look at a certificate, that's what a certificate is. A certificate is a mark. And trust me, folks, you have it in your right hand when you go use it. Every time they ask for it, that you got it in your right hand. It don't say on the right hand, it says in the right hand. And by the way, the King James Bible was written in legalese, that is the King's English. Here's a couple words that you might want to go check out in the legal dictionary. Hell, H-E-L-L. That place beneath the king's exchequer chamber where the king's debtors are held. Water, W-A-T-E-R, water. As in designating a commodity or the subject of ownership, this term has the same meaning in law as in common speech. See, folks, I know why Jesus can walk on water, and I know that's why I can do it too.
Okay.
And for you in Northern Virginia?
Yes, thank you.
But to me,
thank you.
That is the name, the mark, the name, and the number of the beast. It is.
Some other questions here. Let's see. Go ahead. You've been unmuted.
Hello. Am I on?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yep, you're on.
Okay, the question I have, when you resign as the registered agent, you made mention as to becoming the executor. I've looked into some of the trust law, and, you talked about birthright. Well, it doesn't matter, I reckon, what your lineage is from your biological parents. I'm adopted. If your birthright comes from God, and if God gives man dominion over the planet, and the requirements were to treat his brothers and sisters as he would want to be treated, and there was more than enough provided for everyone that was created, man and woman, on the planet, then what you have is a usufructory trust where God gives everything. You own nothing but have free use of what is present. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the trust law aspect. You mentioned being the executor. Well, in Title 12 of the United States Code, Section 95A, I think paragraph 2 or something, that it makes mention of the renunciation of the claim and the reversionary interest assignment. So what I'm thinking here is if a fellow was or a gal was able to do the resignation of being the registered agent, you would remove that presumption that you're a willing participant in that capacity of the trust.
Right. I'm no longer acting as registered agent.
Right. And now you want to give the United States Corporation, formed in 1871, all of the benefits of that entity, because you're not that entity. You told them you're not that entity. That's why you're resigning. But you want them to have the benefit of their creation, because it's something they created, and therefore you're greater than that they created because you created them also. Let them have the benefit of use of naked possession of the name, but now they're in total possession of the name and the entity, making them the usufructuary and the public trustee, because any benefit that you may gain by giving them that renunciation or resignation of registered agent and then full assignment of the reversionary interest, and I would say maybe to do it to the state that your certificate was issued in, to that attorney general and that governor, because county block grant money comes back from the government's stock brokerage scam they got going on, Ponzi scheme, to the counties, and they call it block grant money, and it's called block grant because it's your money that they're blocking you from getting, and they're taking it. So if you do the full assignment and give it to them willingly, now you're trusting, you're expressing. It's no longer an implied trust, it's an express trust, because the man, the only one that can do the expression, because the others are just dead pieces of paper and entities that can't speak,
right.
then you're in a position to be just any kind of benefit you would get would be strictly incidental. They're there to get the benefit. You've told them that, and they're the public trustees. So go ahead and honor House Joint Resolution 192 that was repealed in 1982, but recodified in public statutes at large, 48, 48, 112,
yep.
And let them have the benefit. Now they should just go away and be happy.
Right. Well, they should, but it's not all about that. It's about power and control. It's about magi's and magi straits, and current and currency and circuits and power. These words that I'm using, they all have meaning. Currency is, you know what I'm saying? Currency is used in a lot different way than money. Currency is used to pass current.
Right, and manpower is commercial energy, because
it's from where
without
all
the man, GM would never. Right, without the man, GM wouldn't produce the first car.
That's right. Nor could they borrow. Nor could they enter into any kind of agreement.
The interesting thing here is if in the end you'll end up having to set up the trust to them somehow.
I'm sure that a lot of people have, I've heard this a lot, they go into court, well, hell, they're not following statute law, they're not following the Constitution, they're not following trust law, they're not following commercial law. But I will tell you what law they're following and what law they're using. They're using the law of agency. And until you understand how the law of agency operates, and as soon as you can go to Google Books, and they have plenty of books on there, treaties on agencies, and it tells you a lot about how agencies work. For instance, myself, I feel like I jumped the gun on resigning from the agency. And the reason I did that is because, I was so enlightened, wanting to get rid of it, that I didn't think real quick. So I went ahead and resigned the position as registered agent and assumed the person in office of executor. And I also directed the Secretary of State to forward to the Chief Executive Office of the organization all debts and proof of claims and evidences of debt, as provided by law. Under the law of agency, an infant can be an agent, all right? and it happens all the time from the old days to today. And it's usually done with paupers. A lot of people don't want to, don't look at, everybody talks about the Constitution and the law, but when you actually go look at it, the law is kind of rough because paupers and vagrants do not have the same rights as free men. If you go and look at the Constitution for Kentucky, it sits there and says in very clear terms that that the absolute and arbitrary power over the lives and property of free men exists nowhere in a republic, not even in the largest majority. And that's what you want. You want the free man status. Well, what is a free man? A free man is somebody who's not bound to the legal restraint of another, that he's able to exercise his own judgment, he's able to exercise his own conscience, and do
called self-governance.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's what you want. And when you, under the law of agency, here's what I should have done. I should have filed what's called an agent's lien on all the property that's in my possession. For instance, we all know that name isn't ours, and on the deeds and on the titles to the cars and on title deed to the property, that it has that all capital letter name. It's in the name of that state agency. So what you want to do is, well, how can you lock that up? Well, there's a thing called an agent's lien. And an agent can fill out a UCC-1 stating that it's an agent's lien, and he can put a lien against all the property that he has in his possession, but only the property he has in his possession. And then he can send a bill to the principal, which is the United States, and say, hey, look, until you pay me what you owe me, this lien's on all property here, it's mine, and the court will definitely uphold that. And another thing is that under the law of agency, if you cannot find the principal, the natural person principal who is responsible for your contact, if he does not make himself known as the registered agent or as agent, you are allowed to assume the role of executor and dissolve the estate and settle the estate, giving the creditors what's owed to them and giving, of course, yourself a little something.
Good luck with ever being able to pull that one off. Get them to cough up the value of the estate that they've traded it on and stuff. I mean, even they say
what we all want is those accounts, right? We want access to those accounts, right?
That'd be great, but that's not. I'd just soon live and let live. If they let me alone, I'd walk away from them with clean hands and be happy. But it just doesn't seem that that's going to be accomplished right now until we get enough more people educated that they don't buy into the paradigm of thinking in the terms that we've been deceived. I mean, until they wake up to the fact of how we've been deceived, like you have, I don't see, it's going to take numbers, I think, to do it. Now, if you find judges, magistrates along the way that honor, like maybe you had one down there that kind of seemed like you would, that's great, because we need more of those men and women on the bench. But a magistrate really is just a referee. They're not like an administrative judicial officer, because the magistrate can set on judicial, statutory issues, or common law side. Whereas
they're what's referred to as quasi-judicial officers, and so are attorneys. Attorneys are quasi-judicial officers. And what I mean by quasi-judicial officer means that they occupy a ministerial office, but they somehow function or operate a function of the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And the police officer on the side of the road, he's a quasi-judicial officer also.
Yeah,
that's why he can make a claim and find you in violation. Well, how are you going to find me in violation? And if you look at any kind of traffic tickets or uniform citation you got on there, it always says under post-arrest complaint.
Complaint is key because complaint is not the same word as claim. A man can make a claim, and a man can require.
Making claims.
An entity would make the complaint and request.
All right. Now, when you get pulled over under Kentucky Revised Statute 189.390, that's the statute they get for a speeding ticket. That's what they cite when they give you a speeding ticket. But if you go to 189.010, I believe, which is the definitions, you scroll down and you look, and you'll see that the term vehicle and motor vehicle mean all agencies for the transportation of persons or property over upon the highways. And if you go to 186 and look, you'll see that that in there it states under the definitions of highway that any place whatever is open to the public or anybody has as a matter of right, privilege, or license can travel upon. Now, so that brings me, am I traveling on the highways as a matter of right, privilege, or license? Well, if you're operating a foreign entity, that agency, then you have to register. You have to be licensed. There's no doubt about it.
You're doing it by privilege and
license.
License, and if you're doing it privately like you are now, you're private. Yep.
I'm private. Right. That's what I got in my declaratory judgment. The judge recognized my status as a private citizen.
Well, in the Supreme Court rulings, and I don't know whether this was Marbury versus Madison, but one of them sticks out in my mind because the justice ruled, and I don't know which justice it was now, but he ruled that the unencumbered individual, and you made mention of individual earlier.
Right.
An individual doesn't necessarily mean person. It could be man or woman.
Well, it means a single person, but everybody wants to think person means corporation, trust, or an artificial entity. That's not true because a person, it could also be a man considered according to the rank he holds in society, giving him all the rights and duties and obligations that pertain to that rank.
That's correct. And the only right and obligation and duty you have to society or your fellow man is just what the Creator told you, and that was to treat them. Yeah, follow the common law. Treat them like you want to be treated.
That's right.
So
and that's where we all want to get. We want to get on that common law side so we can get out of this. And by the way, when you operate that agency, that foreign entity of the United States, it puts you in what's called the Special Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction of the United States. And this comes from, believe it or not, folks, bankruptcy. I'm sure y'all have heard that the United States has had reorganization efforts so many times. On that one video, if you watch it all the way through from beginning to end, you'll hear the judge sitting there. He goes, it reminds me of a time when the president of the local bar association stopped me on the street and asked me if I would address the bar on the local bar on the Uniform Commercial Code because he was just got out of law school and he was the only one that was familiar with the Uniform Commercial Code. And he says, after I got up there and I gave my little speech and everything, he said some old judge stood up in the background. He said, "You people have repealed everything I know." And he's absolutely right. Because if you go to the Kentucky Revised Statute under general statute definitions, definitions of statutes generally, you'll notice that the Kentucky Revised Statutes of 1942 are substituted for the laws enforced in Kentucky. So when they're bringing a statute against you, it's automatically color of law. It's a substitute for the law because the law went out the window when all the gold went out the window. And now we operate under agencies. And that's why you look under the Code of Federal Regulations that Federal Reserve notes are only for use within government agencies.
Right. Right. So I have to ask you this question just because you're astute enough to be checking out in the manner that you're checking out. Have you checked out of the IRS?
No, that entity could, that's what I said. I kind of jumped the gun on the resignation because there's some things For instance, there is a way to get a hold of the accounts, and there's 3 ways you can get a hold of the account, and the 3 ways you can get a hold of that account are in Article 9 of the Uniform Commercial Code. If you go and look under the Uniform Commercial Code, under the term creditor, an agent is a creditor. He is. And that's what we all don't understand.
Well, you can be a creditor under the 1865 Banking Act, which was a reorganization of the bankruptcy of 1859 when
Right.
Lincoln's Civil War went on. That was all. Wasn't to free the black man, it was to enslave the white man, the black man, the brown man,
That's
the yellow
right.
man, the green man, everybody to the
that's
corporation.
Why I tell everybody when they had the Civil War, the North didn't win and the South didn't win. This little corporation in a 10-mile square called the United States won, and they're at war with everybody, and they still are. Of course, we're under emergency acts and stuff like that, and Congress has made no distinction between emergency conditions and war. There is no difference. So when they say they're got a war on poverty, make no doubt about it, folks. They are in a full-fledged war against poverty and drugs and all the other shit.
Right. Right.
They love war.
You got two other ways you say that you can check out of their system. In the trust fund, the Social Security trust fund part of it, because we all know that the agency is being taxed, no matter whether it's the traffic ticket alongside the road or the bill that the IRS sends you at the end of the year.
You could actually call that state agency taxpayer. So that's what he is. He's the taxpayer. And they trick you into using him and being him. You know, I always thought, when the Bible says, you were born into sin and the wages of sin is death, and the only way that you could be saved is to be born again and have your name written in the book of life. This is kind of funny because we all know about the Sister K. Vi Act and the Sister K. Trust, the beneficiary. I was in court twice, and twice I asked for the judge to enter a finding that I am alive. Twice. And, of course, no such finding was entered on the record.
Well, we've asked that question, too, before, and we've even asked that via FOIA from the IRS. Do you list us as a decedent, or do you list us as alive? What the admiralty courts do, they resurrect you from the dead, crucify you after they've raped you for your money, and throw you back into the grave.
Yeah.
That's exactly,
because they have your body on deposit.
Right. And where do they put you? They may put you in a bonded warehouse with a lot of other warehouse
That's right.
people.
That's right. And they'll put you at a location.
Right.
Not a place.
Well, one way that I've heard to get your account, and whether this is true or not, but it to some degree makes a little bit of sense, but, as corrupt can be, you wonder whether you could ever pull it off. But if you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, mandatory liquidation on the unit, and say you've got a credit card bill or a house payment or whatever it is, but you file the liquidation on that entity, well, now the federal judge, he's in a predicament because he's going to appoint a U.S. bankruptcy trustee to oversee it. But now they're going to have to trace the CUSIP numbers and the ISIN numbers on where they've sold it and what markets it's in, and collect all those funds, cash out that portion of the fund that certificate was sold into, and pay all the debts. Now, they're going to have millions that they're going to scam off the top for sure from you, because that's just how the U.S. bankruptcy attorneys will do it. They're going to get their chunk of it, but you might end up with a small portion, maybe a couple $100,000 out of millions in the end after you pulled that one off. I heard somebody suggest that theory to try it, and I said, well, don't think I'm going to be the guinea pig on it, but it'd be interesting to know what would happen.
There's 3 ways that a debtor or creditor can take control of account held by a third party, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about those accounts held by the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve. These accounts are all under this entity, the state agency. And, yes, there was a bond issued. And, yes, there is definitely accounts with large numbers in it. And one of the ways you can gain control of those accounts is if the creditor and the debtor, which in your case would be you, be the creditor, and the debtor would be the entity. If you, the creditor, and the debtor both agree that you should have access to those accounts, and that has to be by court order. Another way to do it is if the creditor becomes a customer of the bank in possession of the account with respect to the account. And the third way to do that is, I don't want to misspeak, but there is a third way where after dissolution, what's called a receiver. You guys know what a receiver, when a court appoints a receiver?
They're going to take the goods after the bankruptcy, right?
Right. The receiver, he's in charge of gathering up all the assets, and that's one of the ways. And the third way you can gain access to that account is you can go into the court and ask. You're going to claim fraud. You're going to claim the Baby Act. You're going to claim all kinds of damages. You're going to claim all this, and then you're going to ask the court to appoint a receiver to dissolve the organization and to pay all the debts. And that's what that receiver will do. He'll go in and he'll start hunting down all the accounts, gather them all up into one body estate, and then pay the creditors, secured creditors off first, according to their UCC-1 filing statement. And then with whatever's left goes to the beneficiary, which, by the way, is you.
Well, I mean, I don't want to own anything. Bible tells me I don't even own my own body, but it's here for me to use. So we'll let them own it. Then they can have the liability for operating it too, but for the time being, as long as I have breath in my dirt body, I get to use it, and it means tax-free. Use it.
Right.
Tax-exempt, just like you put on your plate for your vehicle. That means property tax exempt on the house and whatnot.
Yeah,
now,
no agency, non-commercial, tax exempt, private property.
Right. Do you carry around a bill of sale with you by chance? And when you did, for those couple times,
absolutely.
And when you did get, was it notarized or just witnessed by 2 people?
Notarized.
Okay, and then the next question: when they seen that, did they allow you to drive that or travel away in that vehicle, or did they want you to walk away while they impounded the vehicle?
No, they didn't say anything to me. They did bring up the question, well, I don't know if we could do this. And the reason is because I don't have a driver's license. That's what they said. Well, you don't have no driver's license. I said, well, ma'am, it's called an operator's license, and I don't operate an agency here in the Commonwealth. Could I speak to your boss? Well, come to find out, guess who the boss was? It was a judge. But it was a judge in some different building than the courthouse, in some other little building that looked just like a courthouse but way smaller. And I went there and talked to him, and I told him, I showed him my declaratory judgment and things, and he told her to go ahead and, crimp it, kill it.
Yeah, so you got lucky, and it just so happened it was between 8 and 5 when this happened, so that she took you right before the magistrate like they're supposed to do.
Right. Yeah, because she was giving me some hubbub about it, saying she didn't want to take responsibility. I said, well, and I tried to show her my court shield documents, and, and she said, well, I'll have to talk to the judge. I said, well, go get him. She disappeared for about 15, 20 minutes. Next thing you know, some very old gentleman, probably about 70 years come out, and he asked me, he said, well, what can we do for you? And I sat there and explained to him that, sir, I'm not operating a state agency or a foreign entity here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and the Department of Transportation will not give me any kind of license to operate an entity if I'm not operating an entity. And I showed him my declaratory judgment where it says I'm a private citizen and all that things. And after he looked over it a couple of minutes, he just pointed to the lady. He said, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it,
Sure. Well, one time that I seen a Kentucky judge was for a friend of mine driving down there without a driver's license, but he had Indiana state plates on the vehicle and the trailer it was pulling. But the proof of insurance, that's the only thing they was interested in, was that individual had some type of liability coverage for when that vehicle was on their roadway. They didn't
I have insurance.
If it was in commerce or not, per se, because when he went in front of the judge a couple of weeks later, when he went in front of the judge, that's all the judge wanted to know. He said, well, I never said, he called him Mr. Doug. And Doug said, well, no, I'm not that entity. I'm Douglas Allen, and I'm a man and whatnot. And then the judge said, well, I believe I seen some paperwork here that showed you had insurance. Is that correct? He said, yeah. And the judge said, case dismissed. Because that's all.
I have insurance.
That's all. That judge cared about was that you were commercially covered for liability should you cause an accident, which would make him public trustee over the highways of somebody being injured because you were driving or traveling in a motor vehicle that could do damage, bodily injury, death, without insurance. Now, how were you able to get insurance? Because most of the companies that I'm familiar with, half a dozen different ones, somewhere in their policy in the fine print, it says licensed driver.
Get an insurance company that does not operate out of state and interstate commerce. Because if an insurance company operates in more than one office, let's say we have an insurance company that has its original articles of incorporation in, say, Delaware, and they open an office up next to a hospital or something here in Somerset, Kentucky. All right, the entity is already automatically in interstate commerce. It has to follow all regulations of Congress while in interstate commerce. But however, if if a company has its articles of incorporation here in this state, it's a state entity. It's not a federal entity. It's a state entity, and the federal jurisdiction doesn't kick in until that entity enters into interstate commerce. So as long as that insurance company stays within that state, it's only subject to the state regulations. And like I said before, it depends on where you live. Listen, the correct legal answer to every legal question, I don't care who's asking it, is it depends. Because there is no right and wrong answer. It always depends. If you're going to ask me a legal question, the answer is it depends. Who are you? Where were you born? What's your status? And I know it sounds crazy, and I know a lot of people don't like that fact, but it has a lot to do with the way the law affects you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
It's like after the Civil War.
We've got a lot of other people waiting. We've got a couple of people waiting.
Okay, thanks, Angela. Thanks, Speaker.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes. You're up.
Hi, Ken. This is
unmuted.
Ken.
How you doing?
Oh, all right. Yourself?
Pretty
Sounds
good.
like you've had a fun evening so far.
Great.
I almost forgot my question. A couple of them. You've heard of claim the name, do a DBA in your all caps name,
right?
Registering it as your own name kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Any clue how this would affect doing that? Would you need to rescind all that?
Well, keep in mind that's their name, that's their legal name of their registered organization, and you are merely just an agent, and that's no difference than you operating a McDonald's franchise. What you're doing is operating a franchise of the United States. If you go and claim something that isn't yours, I think we all know how that's going to work out. But you can claim a creditor, and you can claim all the property that you have in your possession as agent with the agent's lien. You just have to file a bill with the principal and tell the bill, demand payment from the chief executive office where the organization was created. And when they don't pay, that's when you go file the agent's lien on your house, on your car, all your private property, your TVs, anything that you bought or that is in the name of that agency. Now, nobody can touch you regarding any of your property. You just did away with the registered office. You just did away with the appointment for service of process against the entity. And by the way, folks, if there is not a statement on file with the Secretary of State accepting appointment for service of process is insufficient. And let me break that down for you. When a cop goes to serve you, they are actually serving the registered agent. All right, and your duty and obligation is just simply send that service of process notice or demand to the chief executive office. But they don't tell you that. All right, so they send you in there blind as the agent, and they're going to make you do it when, in fact, that your only obligation is to forward to the chief executive office that service of process notice or demand. If there is no filing with the Secretary of State with you accepting appointment for that entity, service of process is insufficient. That means unless the Secretary of State has some kind of document on file where you have accepted appointment for service of process, that service for process is no good. It's void. It's not worth the paper it's written on. You follow me?
I think when you know what I noticed on a change of address form, it says that you agreed to accept service of
yes, because you're the registered agent.
Post office.
And that's because you're the registered agent for that foreign entity, and they tricked you into turning your house and residence into a registered office for that registered organization. Now you're doing business as your all capital letter name, a state agency, which is located and domiciled and a resident citizen of the state of District of Columbia, a citizen of the United States located in the District of Columbia. Now, the law in your state is looking at you, that entity, as a foreigner. You follow me? You're foreign. And as you are foreign, you don't enjoy all the rights guaranteed by the Constitution, by the people of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. You're subject to the legislative dictum of Congress in interstate commerce. And the whole service of process thing is if you've never accepted appointment for service of process, service of process is insufficient. They can't even bring a case against the entity. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it has no registered agent in the state. So how are they going to serve it? They can't. They have to actually send the secretary, and it has provisions for this in 14A. The Secretary of State has to, once you send your letter in, the 31st day after you get the receipt of your certified letter of resignation, resigning from the appointment for service of process as registered agent for the registered organization, and discontinuing all registered offices, on the 31st day after you receive that receipt that the Secretary of State filed, you are no longer the registered agent. Your home is no longer the registered office. The registered organization no longer does business here in the Commonwealth. And as such, it cannot be served. If that makes any sense.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go look at Kentucky Revised Statute 14A, and you go look at the Rules of Civil Procedure, you'll see that unless the registered agent has accepted appointment for service of process, the service of process is insufficient. And we all know what insufficient means when we get into that court, right?
They didn't tell you. You don't count.
It's like one time I went into court over a traffic ticket, and I got what it was. I got pulled over doing 40 and a 25. I had my self-made plates on there, and I didn't have no driver's license. You know what I'm saying? Well, this cop pulls me over, and it's kind of funny. I get pulled over. Cop comes up to me. He says, "Where are you driving to in such a hurry?" And here I am sitting behind the wheel, and I go, "Oh, officer, I'm not driving." You know, he's like, "You're not driving?" "Oh, absolutely not." He said, "Well, I noticed your plate back there, and you got driver's license and registration, please?" And I said, "Well, officer, you know, I don't have that stuff, but here you go. Here's my declaratory judgment from the court." And he was like, "Well," he said, I'll read this." He says, "What's your name?" And he asked me for my name, and I told him my given name. And he goes, "Well, what's your last name?" I said, "Well, I don't have a last name. I have a family name." He said, "Well, what's your family name?" And I told him my family name. He said, "What's your birth date?" I said, "Officer, I don't have a birth date. I have a birthday." He said, "Well, what's your birthday?" I told him my birthday. And he said, "Well, what year?" I said, "Every year." And so he goes, "Well, what's your Social Security number?" I said, "Officer, I don't use a Social Security number because of my religious beliefs." He goes, and he's sitting there and he's shaking his head. He said, "All right, I'll be back here in a minute." So he goes back to his car. Another squad car pulls up. They get out and they chat for a while. They come back up to me, and the one cop's playing bad cop, and he goes, "You going to give this officer your Social Security number?" I said, "Officer, I don't use a Social Security number." And they talked to me for a little bit more, trying to shake me down, and they went back to the back of the car, talked for about 2 minutes, and they come back up, and the one officer that pulled me over come back up, and he said, "Well, I pulled you over doing 40 and a 25. He said, "That's strike one." He said, "You're driving around with no plates and no registration." He said, "That's strike two." He said, "You ain't got no driver's license and no ID on you." He said, "That's 3 strikes." He said, "Normally I'd take you to jail, but today I'm going to let you go. And I hope you understand, Mr. My name, I'm just doing the people's business." And off I rode.
Had to get in that last big bluffing roar, didn't he?
Yeah, because that's what an informant needs. He needs information. And let me advise everybody, never talk to the police. Not even if you think you're the smartest man on earth, that you're the slickest talking dude on earth. Never talk to police, because if they're talking to you, they ain't got nothing on you. If they got something on you, your ass would be arrested and they wouldn't be talking to you. So if they're asking you questions, they ain't got shit.
I'll go for that.
Okay.
Oh, and one more thing. If you look up the word date in the legal dictionary, you'll find that it's in strict regards to an instrument, the creation of an instrument. Which, by the way, when I said earlier, the original instrument that we're all having problems with that we'd like to see, that instrument is called matrix. Matrix. In civil law, the original or protocol from which the original or protocol of the instrument from which all copies must be made. Don't think that's weird?
It is.
Yeah. They have a website that's called Matrix. Have you ever seen that?
Look it up in Black's Law, 5th edition, Matrix.
That's when.
Have you ever dealt with the Census Bureau?
I'm sorry?
Huh?
Have you ever dealt with the Census Bureau?
They come to my little home one time.
Okay, a friend of mine got a letter from the Census Bureau saying you are hereby required by law to respond and reply to this census request.
You may be required by law if you're a registered agent.
Right. However, it's sent to resident at such and such address.
All right. Are you the resident?
Nope.
Me neither. Matter of fact, I'm a non-resident, having private citizen status. And what I mean by non-resident means I'm not part of the. And let me tell you something else I found out is the business trust. For instance, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, when they bring a charge against you, they bring it under the all-capital letter name Commonwealth of Kentucky. The Commonwealth of Kentucky is actually a business trust under the governor's office. So when you bring the charge against you, the state of, know exactly that's the executive branch in office. That's not the state. That's the executive bringing charge against you. It's a company. It's a business trust. Do you know what a business trust is?
Not exactly.
A business trust where property is conveyed to the managers as principals who are to deal with the property for the Sesta K Trust, and the Sesta K Trust is given certificates. And that's what they've done when they made you part of the state, the corporate state called Commonwealth of Kentucky, which is actually, in reality, a business trust. And if you go look at the bankruptcy estate as a business trust and do some research on that, you'll understand why the bankruptcy created the business trust and why your human capital was listed as the assets which were given to the state as managers, as principals of the agency for your benefit.
I'm still trying to figure out how I'm supposed to benefit out of all this.
Well, every office of judge and every office created by the Constitution was created solely for the benefit of the people, and the judges are trustees. You are the beneficiary, but you have to know the beneficiary of what. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you think
the only thing I've benefited from so far is they stole my house.
Right, and a lot of people do benefit.
That's not a.
Do you see what I'm saying? So when we say this is a fraud, it's not a fraud because a lot of people have benefited. It has helped a lot of people out, don't you think?
Say it again. I missed part of it.
Well, I said that a lot of people have benefited from the creation of these organizations. And what I mean by that is it has allowed a lot of people to get education, public schooling, meals. Maybe they got a college scholarship or a grant. And all these things are impossible. And let me state clearly about that when I went into this, I went into it with full knowledge and understanding that I am willing to give up every benefit offered.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? That you have to be willing to. So if you're in a not such a great financial condition, I would advise you to work your ass off, save all the money you can, then make your move, so that you'll have the cash as a private citizen to operate.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're young, I would advise you to take full advantage of this opportunity to enjoy the benefits of which is offered. If you're not very sound financially, I would advise you to work your ass off, save every dime you can, and when you get enough money to buy you a home privately, on the private side, and acquire some kind of copyhold or a freehold. Just keep on beating at it until you got that money. Then once you got that money together, then make your move. Then go file the agent's lien on all the property. Then resign from the agency as registered agent. Assume the role of executor until the principal makes himself known or any other parties to the organization make themselves known. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm trying to force their hand to see who all the other interested parties are. You see what I'm saying? I want to know who's involved because as soon as I find out who's involved, then I know who to sue. You know what I mean?
Right.
And, the depository trust does come up, the probate court. I'm telling you, it's all tied to probate court and a probated estate. And that creates the agency. And once you get done with the agency, once you get rid of that layer of red tape, then you can attack the trust and the accounts.
Okay.
Okay. You still haven't mentioned well, I guess you did. You said the Article 9, the securities.
Yes, it governs all security interests in personal property. Everything's commerce. I know people don't believe it, and they don't understand why federal Congress exceeds their jurisdiction and making rules. No, it's merely in commerce. You're in interstate commerce, so therefore you fall under legislative dictum. That's the Constitution. The Constitution gives them that power.
Right.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Got a couple more
me.
people
Thanks,
in line. All right, thank you. G, go ahead. You've been unmuted.
Ken, very good program. Thank you for the information. And what I was calling for is you've gotten into a number of words, and do you have an expanded list of words for us to go through and research and learn?
Oh, well, sure. A matter of fact, if you guys want, I could hook you up with all 9 editions of Black Law dictionary. I can also hook you up with a couple of John Bouvier's dictionaries from 1800s, if you guys want to go download those.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of people would like to have them. I do already.
Right.
But the number of words to go through to find those, it's the actual words that you've encountered that, well, you surprised me with a number of words already and what their meanings are. And I never thought to look up matrix, and yet matrix is a very common word in a lot of programs that you hear.
Yeah, when I seen matrix, I was like weird. I was like, because everybody's talking about, everybody wants out of the matrix, Well, that's the truth. Everybody wants out of that original instrument. And plead the Baby Act.
Pardon?
Plead the Baby Act.
Baby Act.
The Baby Act.
Huh. I hadn't heard of that either.
Research that. Research the Baby Act. What it is, Baby Act is when somebody can, I think somebody put it up earlier in the room, but it's where somebody can, it's a form of plea where somebody can enter and say, hey, man, I was a baby, man. Can't hold me responsible for that shit. But for some words that you need to look up is, and I would look in the legal dictionary and Uniform Commercial Code, and that's registered organization, creditor, agency, security interest. Some other words to look up is birth certificate, and if you go look at the term birth certificate, it says it's a formal document. Go look up the word formal document. If you go look up the word document, it'll tell you that it's a writing or an instrument, such as a will, a deed, a declaration of trust. I'm trying to think of some other words. Oh, hell. Another word, a cool word to look up is witchcraft, navigation, ship, sea. For instance, sea is the great body of water that surrounds the land. Well, what's water? Water, as in designating a commodity or the subject of ownership, this term has the same meaning in law as in common speech. There's a lot, man, I can go on all day concerning words, shit. Age and Frida. See if anybody can find out what that is, Age and Frida, because I'm an Age and Frida. AGENFRIDA.
Okay, anything else, Nikki?
Not right off the top of my head. I thank you very much. And thank you, Angela.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Well, here's what I figure. It's your human capital is the asset of the birth certificate. And let me explain something here. How another, because I've been pretty fortunate to come across some instruments and documents issued by the government, which let's see if I can find it here real quick. I want to get the OMB number off the documents so you guys know what I'm talking about. But I have a friend who has an autistic child, and check this guy out, guys. I have a friend who has an autistic child, and she gets a letter in the mail, every 3 months from a document issued by the Commonwealth of Kentucky and the U.S. Department of Labor, and it is addressed to the Natural Resource Manager, and on it says organization name, and it has her son's all capital letter name there, and it has estimated employees 2. Now, these 2 so-called employees are people who my friend, she writes payroll times and timesheets out for them and everything to provide services for her son, who is autistic. And these 2 guys, they come by, they pick him up, they take him out, they show him how to count money, spend money, to help improve his life. But like I said, it's addressed to the Natural Resource Manager, which is my friend, his mom, and it says organizational name, and it's got the all capital letter name right there, her son's all capital letter name. But one thing at the bottom straight is what it says. It says, our records show that your products and services are listed as below. Right? Now here's this. Engagement in maintaining and repairing commercial and industrial machinery and equipment. Well, what is industrial machinery and equipment, commercial and industrial machinery and equipment? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's called capital goods. Goods used in the production of other goods and services. So make no mistake about it, folks, that these people see you as property, you see? And the reason they do that, I don't want to get all the way back to the Civil War and how all that came about, but, yes, it is tied to that 14th Amendment citizen status, yes. Because you don't have, if you're not the people, you don't have the rights of the people. You are merely, they consider you as a resident of District of Columbia, the United States, and you're just in their state doing business. And that's why they treat you as foreigners. That's why they treat you bad without rights, constitutional rights anyway. But get rid of that presumption, get rid of that evidence, get rid of that document of the Secretary of State for accepting the settlement of service and process, and you won't have to deal with it no more. And as far as jurisdiction goes at the court, when you go into court jurisdiction, you challenge jurisdiction, the first thing that should come out of your mouth is tell the judge that you need to know the names, nationalities, and citizenships of all the persons involved in these proceedings before you can continue.
All righty. Moving on. Patriot 1, you've been unmuted.
Thank you, Angela, and hello, everybody. And this seems fascinating because I always put a question to other shows and hosts, and that question is, where does the Constitution allow the government employees to contract with the people without the Constitution? Because
I think maybe a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of what the Constitution is and why it was created. There are different statuses here in what we call America. United States is located in the District of Columbia, of course. But there's different statuses. And, for instance, you take Pennsylvania. William Penn owned all the land in Pennsylvania. He had the freehold. And when they gained their independence and the king and everybody signed off on claims to all the said lands, William Penn was the owner of all that shit. And he sold, his heirs, sold a very large portion of Pennsylvania to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So that's how Commonwealth of Pennsylvania obtained control over most of Pennsylvania. The status of someone who was born to one of the people, and when I say the people, I mean the freeholder, the landholders, and the copy holders at that time. That's who I'm talking about. That's the people, and their posterity is their posterity. All right. now the Civil War come around, and we had this thing called the 14th Amendment. This created a whole different status, all right? And the reason, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can actually go through in 1867, 1868, in the Congress, in the congressional records, and they talk about it. I sit there and watch, I sit there and read page after page of these congressmen and senators getting up there talking, about why they were doing what they were doing with the 14th Amendment. Some argued that, hey, Congress doesn't have the power to create a citizen of the United States. Some argued that, the Constitution says all men are created equal. And, there's the guy from Kentucky called a lot of shit because he kept on saying that, and they was like, well, all men are created equal except the Negro. So what they did, and I'm sure you've heard this before, that the United States issued bonds against for the slaves to the Southern plantation owners, and automatically, and what they did is create these agencies. So now they don't have any constitutional secured rights, but now that they're a citizen of the United States, they have what's called commercial rights as agents. I even heard Lindsey Graham and Chris Matthews, Hardball, they were sitting there on talking about it one Sunday morning, how the slaves were given commercial rights. And that's one status. Now, another status is that of the immigrants that come over after the Civil War. After the Civil War, the United States was heavily in debt. The people had the land, they had the resources, but they lacked the labor to produce those resources to pay off their debts. So this is when the corporation United States was created, 1871, because now it acts like a business trust that acts strictly like a corporation, and it has agents. And when they allowed all these immigrants to come over, they created agencies. These people are merely immigrant workers. That's what they are, and their children, and their children's children. They do not share the same status as those posterity of the freeholders and copy holders at the time of the Revolution, Independence, and signing of the Constitution. If that helps any.
Well, not really. I comprehend what you're saying, but that doesn't negate the fact that William Penn owned all of Pennsylvania at the barrel of a gun, or the king at the barrel of a gun allowed him to do something and turn the gun away.
Well, I don't want you to misunderstand. I don't agree with their law or their conclusions of it, but this is how they operate. They operate under the barrel of a gun. We all know that.
Right. I'm not saying that you agree with it or anything, but that's the gist of my question. If the Constitution was formed for people to unite together in defense of freedom as opposed to slavery, even though at the time there was slavery, which was the tradition at the time, and to do away with it, it doesn't happen at the snap of a finger, so it took some time to do that. But the Constitution, it seems to me, or at least I was taught, that it was to secure freedom for men and women. And
well, if you look at the preamble to the Constitution, it gives the reasons why it was created, and it clearly states in there for ourselves and our posterity. And I'm pretty sure they wasn't talking about the slaves on the plantation when they were writing that document. Yes, I agree with you that there was some, and there was a lot of debate over it at that time about whether or not slavery, and some just decided to put it off to a later time. I agree with that. It's like the Northwest.
Well, when you said to ourselves and our posterity, they didn't mean to ourselves the agency and the posterity of the agency. It was to ourselves, men and women, and our posterity, or our children, and the future of mankind, I suppose. And it was in this particular place, the several United States, that they did this, but England would not recognize George or Thomas or Benjamin, because England, being a fiction, could only recognize a fiction, the United States.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's why George and Benjamin formed these United States, but the purpose was for the people to be free. And it seems that these bankers and whatever came in with this SDK trust of 1,600 and whatever. It's all, this is, you know, in this birth certificate, and now we can sell your name and say, I'm born and I travel and I grow up and I have no idea there's a birth certificate, that everything I do, I have a gun pointed at me. The cop pulls me over. Why are you driving? What do you mean? I'm going to the store. Get out of the car. Get up against the car. I'm going to search your butt. You know.
He who cannot pay with his purse will pay with his person.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I can't be a master plumber and learn the art of plumbing, or a master electrician and learn the art of electrician. I have to be a master lawyer and learn the game of their secret words and secret trust and secret oaths.
Well, first of all, the attorneys are acting as quasi-judicial officers in the administration of the bankruptcy estate of the United States and its child corporations. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I do, but say a guy's elected governor, he doesn't know all this law, trust, fiduciary bullcrap.
Well,
before he gets elected.
Don't think that. Find out if you went to a public school or private school. Because let me tell you, there's the public side and the private side, and the knowledge on the private side is kept secret from those in the public. They're not going to teach you about contract law or agency law or constitutional law in high school. You know what I'm saying? They like us. Stupid people and ignorant people are easy to manipulate. Well-informed and wise people are not so easy to manipulate.
Well, the well-informed and wise people seem to be the ones that are manipulating. They're becoming the liars and thieves. So say I'm elected governor. Well, if I was elected governor, I'd have to learn all this trust and all these words you're using, and then apply it as governor to where now I'm governor, and now I got to do what? I got to treat a man as what? I got to steal money from this trust fund for what? When you take that oath of office, all right, you just swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Constitutions are constituted by constitutors. Constitutors are someone who agreed to pay someone else's debt. And that's exactly why the Constitution was created. If you go back and read the Continental Congress papers, that was the big issue on the table, is how to resolve all the debts owed to foreign nations. France was a big creditor. Some people in England were creditors. So you know what I mean? They created that and Constitution, a federal government, so that it could do business with other nations, while at the same time the states could reserve their sovereignty. It's kind of like a front corporation, so that it can do business. It's a liaison, a corporation formed for purely business purposes. And it did give a certain limited power to the Congress. And if you ever go back and read some of these cases, there was one case in Arizona where a teenage kid got caught in school with a gun. The state brought charges to him for having a gun in school zone, and the feds wanted to take it. Well, the feds ended up backing off, letting the state take it. State took it. They lost. Took it to federal court. They lost again because the court ruled this, is that as long as he's not involved in commerce with that gun, and all he has is simple possession, that it's outside of the jurisdiction of Congress to rule on that. But had he been involved in commerce, trading, selling, robbing, or anything, then he would have lost. But he won that case based on it exceeded the jurisdiction of Congress
to regulate something that didn't have something to do with commerce. That's where they get you. When you're involved in commerce, if you're going to be involved in commerce, if you're going to do business, if you live in Texas and you're going to do business with somebody in Tennessee, you fall under the jurisdiction of Congress. If you live in Texas and you don't have no other business outside of Texas, federal laws and shit don't apply to you. Just the state.
Okay, let's move on. Let's see here. Straight exposing. Go ahead, you've been unmuted.
How's it going, Angela? This True Free, man. 31-7.
What's going on, man?
Hi.
Not much. I was going to mention some things about the traffic, but then the guy got to mention the Constitution and free white people, and that's what posterity means. This is not about race. For those of you who think it is, you can go ahead and play that little game if you want to. So, you know.
They're a free black man. They're white slaves.
Yeah, but for one, I'm a melanated individual. I'm one that some people on the call will call black. But I will tell you, I am not black. I am not Negro. I am not African American. Nor am I colored. Nor I assumed I was. But those names are
I consider you as a man. That's how I put it.
Right, exactly, and that's what it's. See, this is what they have us as different nations of people. Or different, what you would call races of people. I don't like to use that term. And I heard the caller say, what's a good word to look up? Look up race. Show me where it has anything to do with color. See, this is where you guys are being fooled at, okay? It's status. It's all status. What is your status? What is your political status in the community? This is what it all boils down to, people. Y'all want to sit up here and claim this Constitution says free white people. I'll tell you what. Man existed long before the Constitution. Man was free long before the Constitution. Melanated people were here long before the Constitution. So for those of you who continue, and I mean on both sides, the so-called black and white that continue to want to play this race game, you keep playing the game and you're going to be chasing that race game and you're going to continue to chase your tail. You know, I'm what you would call a black man, but again, I told you I'm not those. I'm an American national. No one's disputed that. I appointed attorney generals and other public officials as my attorney. I don't get pulled over. They are to protect my rights. I don't have
it's funny that you say that because here in Kentucky, I was notified that if I have any problems with driving or traveling, guess who my agent is?
Who's that?
For service of process.
Who's that?
The Secretary of State.
Okay.
He's my agent for service of process for non-resident entity.
Okay. See, and I created a few things, personal affidavits. I heard you. I came in late, but I heard you when you were talking about, you didn't want to put your personal things out there. I do, of course, but, I took my information out. But it's like I created things on my own. And it's like I've done some things that people would say, you crazy, they're going to lock you up. Well, the feds are ordering people to stay away from me. I'm here in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm True Free Man on YouTube, okay? I have almost 800 videos. I don't play no games with these people. I don't know everything, but I know that I am not what they say I am. I know I don't have to go by their corporate terms, rules, conditions, regulations, etc.
Right.
I fight, and I go in there and I challenge
your status
them.
for you.
Hey, and check this out. Because of your status as registered agent for the registered organization, you automatically fall under statutory times. Here in Kentucky, you have to be proved to be a servant before you even come under statutory jurisdiction. They have to prove you to be a servant for you to be under statutes.
Okay. Yeah, see, the problem is people don't like to read the rules, the code, statutes, and ordinances because they want to. There's the people out here saying, well, you can read those, you can use those because they don't apply to you. Whether they apply to you or not, those are the rules of the game. In order to be able to beat the game or beat them at their own game, you have to learn the rules of the game. It's just that simple. See, there's a lot of patriot myths going on out here, and it's crazy that they use that term. It's like we are free men and women, and we are able to do whatever the hell we want, excuse my language, as long as we don't harm another individual or their property.
Or you fraud in your contracts.
Or exactly, because it's all contract or breach of contract, basically.
And a lot of people think that, a contract with an infant is void. No, it is not void, only voidable.
Yeah, it's voidable. It's voidable, but it would have to be a proper objection to why
there has to be some ground for the illegal. Yeah.
Right, and you know why it's basically permissible for a child to be entered into a contract, because they have an agent, they have an authorized agent working on their behalf.
That's right. They have somebody that's got power of attorney.
Exactly, and it usually be the mother, and the mother gave the power of attorney to the state, and it's so on and so on. It's simple when
you
people.
got it, buddy. You got it.
But I just want to say, I'm telling you, people, it's not about race. Please, even for all of you, it's all of us against them. Okay, if we realize that if we realized that a long time ago, we could have been changed some things around. But we want to keep playing the race game. Look up the word race. Everybody on the call, look up the word race. If you show me where it separates a black individual from a white individual, from a Hispanic, etc., then I will bow down to you. You will not find anything that has to do with race when you trace the word. With color, when you trace the word race, it's gonna refer you to other words, or you're gonna have to look up other words to see what they're talking about, because they keep talking about stock and lineage and
and I found that when I was looking through all researching the terms and words and everything, you can't just read that one definition and figure out what that term means. Hell, you got to go look up every word in that damn definition to really get the grasp and understanding of what that term really means. One little definition, once deconstructed and all the proper definitions inserted into it, hell, one little 2-line definition could turn into 2 pages of a definition of what that term means.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't want to spend the time to do the research. Exactly. That's why it becomes so hard for them and hard for them to understand. I got some court cases on YouTube for people that haven't seen. Like I said, I'm true free, man. I haven't been in the court in a while, but they've been trying to take my property over property taxes. Well, I know that the Constitution for the state of Indiana clearly states that if your property is not being used for tax for an investment, and your property is being used as a primary place of residence, then your property is exempt from taxation. I use their own laws against themselves, because I have never made a dime off this property. I have been living in it for 12 years under y'all own Constitution, as well as some state laws and Supreme Court case. My property is exempt from taxation. But I talk too much because I do all these videos, but I'm in a fight for the people. So
I've listened quite a bit of you. You got a very good understanding about status and what it is to be able to go in there and prove your status. You don't want to be ignorant of your status and what your liabilities and contracts are. Free man, if you have any problems with that entity, just simply, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but you can simply send a letter of resignation to the Secretary of State saying that you're no longer going to accept service of process for that entity, and to send any proofs of claims and any evidences of debt to the Chief Executive Office for payment, set-off, discharge, and settlement as provided for by law.
Right. Yeah, I'm not having too many problems. Well, with the taxes it is, but the thing of it is they like I was like 1 minute late and they claim they already had the hearing. They are scared of me because I do not play. And
right, because they don't want to be exposed for the crooks that they are.
Exactly. And what I've done, I've acquired some top public officials' bonds. Now, the one who held at the tax sale, I haven't paid taxes in 5 years, nor a mortgage in 5 years. Mortgage never attempted to foreclose, and the mortgage company totally went away. Nobody's claiming any interest, having, or anything like that. They attempted to sell it at a tax sale for like 3 years. They finally then scammed somebody into buying it. My neighbor bought one. I went to court. It's been passed around to 3. One judge said she can't touch it because she had to take me to small claims court. And then it's been passed around to like 3 different separate jurisdictional courts here in the county, and they still refuse to set a date. Now I'm getting ready to do that same thing with my property, but traffic, they don't pull me over. They get behind me, run the number. I've addressed the government as to who I am. Whether I did it the right way or what someone else thinks is the right way, I did it my way. And now one of them is going to rebut that, because if they rebut what I did, they're going to prove the fraud and what's going on. Because I claim the name, I claim the Social Security number. I didn't claim it as it's me, but I claimed it as my property. Y'all created it.
Yeah. That's an interesting term, because property not only is regard to the object of ownership, but any interest therein. So even if you have just a small interest in that organization, that's property.
Exactly. So that's pretty much all. I know there's probably others in queue, but I just want to tell people, leave their racial mess out of it. You're having traffic problems, look up True Free Man. I don't get pulled over. My legal person, his license has been suspended. Police get behind me, they run the number. When they run the number, I don't know what's coming back in the system, but they come up beside me.
What number are they running?
Huh?
What number are they running?
Well, I created my own number, but I don't have a vehicle right now. My personal vehicle, just my wife's, and she drives it, so I don't want her having to go through things. But they know who I am. They know me and my wife. We know it's not. We weren't married through the state common law. We've been together about 17 years. They know exactly who I am. They know we together. They know I drive that vehicle or travel. They
know that she's a femme covert. That means he can't do shit under the common law, because you're the husband and she's a femme covert.
Right, but see, we've done a lot of paperwork, but really reestablishing our true status as men and women instead of being these legal persons, fictitious entities, etc. And it's like, they challenged me in court and I stood up. They know exactly who I am. I don't talk politically correct, but I know how to defend myself, and that's something that they not like to see.
That's what it's funny you say it, because the governor's office knows who I am, the secretary office knows who I am, the chief justice knows who I am, and I got from the governor's office, the secretary of state's office, and the county court's office recognizing me as the executor of the estate of the organization. But what I want is the acknowledgement of the property in it, because nobody told me this. Nobody disclosed anything to me. People told me lies. Your agents told me lies. From the day I was real little, you told me that I was a citizen of the United States. You told me I was born in the United States. You told me this, you told me that, you told me this, and you told me that. And you did it so that I would act to my legal injury. That's fraud.
Yep, total fraud. And see, this is the thing. I hear a lot of people on these calls saying that fraud is hard to prove. Fraud is the easiest damn thing to prove. Excuse my language again. If you basically establish a paper trail of records, they usually hang themselves all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's using false documents, the false information.
Right, and once you put them on notice as to who you are and who you are not, and you provide them lawful facts and etc., and they continue to basically act under color of law, then they know the fraud. You didn't put it before them, but see, they are assuming and presuming that you don't know who you are. We didn't agree that we are the legal person, so to speak, i.e. the all cap name, what people call the straw man. But they can basically play that they didn't know. That's why notice is very key in whatever you do in this situation.
That's right, because, and I made that point because the one thing I put on my papers going into court was notice of felony. I'm notifying you, pursuant to the Kentucky Revised Statutes, that these people are trespassing and they're causing me injury and harm and damages, and I'm telling you to tell them to stop. I'm the beneficiary, you're the trustee, they're the servant. Fix it.
Right. Now, did you title that document Notice of Fraud?
Notice of Felony.
Notice of Felony. Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah. I notified the judge because that's what the Kentucky Revised Statute says. And so does the United States Code. It says that if any kind of deprivation is about to happen, notify either a judge or a military officer, which I found interesting, and I know why that is too. But you either notify the judge, the attorney general, or the highest-ranking military officer in the state, and if they don't do something to fix it, they now become liable.
Right, they become part of the.
That's right.
An accessory to a crime, basically.
That's right.
But
That's right.
I see there's others in the call, and I don't. I'll let Angela keep going on. Thanks, Angela, for bringing me in.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And you guys listen to the guy because I listen to him a little bit, and he knows what he's talking about.
All right, thanks.
Okay, let's see. Thank you. Anna, you had your hand up again.
Angela, you already got to me, and thank you guys. Angela, you already did me as pager one. Thank you guys, and I'm going to listen to this call several times. Thank you so much.
All right, and let me go over a couple of things. Yeah, thanks a lot. Hey, Kentucky Revised Statute 405 has a little interesting thing in there for you people that are of less of a financial condition, and you have accidentally filled that birth certificate out. There's a statute that says that the parents are entitled to the services and earnings of their child. All right, and I did help someone that get an extra $350-something a month on their, I guess you would call it a welfare check, but she got extra $357 a month by going down there, quoting that statute, and asking for more help to, fund the child, because the child needed more food and more stuff.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh.
But I just wanted to point you to that, 405, Kentucky Revised Statutes.
Why don't you I tell you what, send me all your stuff, the web. You can come on again and give us more.
Right, because I really didn't even get to the law of agency. Because, like I said, everybody's sitting there going, well, they're not using trust law, they're not using this law, they're not using statutory law, they're not using federal law. What the hell law are they using? Well, I've never heard anybody say it, but I know what it is. It's called the law of agency, folks. And as long as you use that birth certificate and you went down and signed that document, you have become the registered agent, and the law of agency applies. And if I was you, I'd go look at the Business Entity Filing Act in your state and find out what the provisions regarding an entity doing business in your state, and go down there and look at it, and I'm sure you're going to find how to terminate your relationship to that entity. Oh, it's resignation of registered agent. But if you like, I could come on and talk about the law of agency, about some of the particulars of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's fascinating stuff.
And send me your document, your resignation.
Okay, I could do that.
Send me a copy of it.
Now, did anybody get a chance to listen to that bankruptcy in Article 9? I know it's boring. I know it about killed me to sit there and listen to it, but I listened to it 43 minutes before I found out what I really needed to know. But throughout that whole thing, they're going to sit there and tell you about the name. They're going to tell you about the legal name. They laugh about it. They tell you about depriving the trustee of assets and laugh about it. These people make me want to punch them in the face. They know.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any more questions, I'll answer more questions. If not,
88 Bell, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Hi there, Angela. Hey, three things.
Hi.
One is, what dictionaries did you use to look up the words that's used in the King James Version of the Bible?
Black's Law. I have all 9.
And you just grabbed one and looked and kept looking to you.
No, I looked over all. I look over all of them.
Oh, okay.
I go back and forth for each, and I even got Bouvier's. And that's very helpful. Like in Bouvier's, it tells you that Christianity is part of the common law.
Okay.
It tells you that.
Or maybe that's why the government is pushing so hard to get rid of the Christian religion.
Yes.
And stating that they're pulling it out of everything they can pull it out of.
Well, when I went back and looked at all the constitutions created in the state before the Revolution, it's very obvious to me that religion played a very heavy part in the creation of these corporations. All governments are corporations. All governments are corporations.
Yeah, as the U.S. is defined in one of the titles, that it is a corporation.
Yeah, foreign corporation, and you're operating a franchise of that foreign corporation, and you took the certificate of existence down to the Department of Motor Vehicles for the Department of Commerce, which is called the Department of Transportation, and you went down and applied for a license to operate that entity in the state, and you signed a piece of paper accepting appointment for service of process for that entity.
Now, that license, are you saying that's the birth certificate is the license, or are you saying the driver's license is the license?
No, you need to have a license to operate a foreign entity in your state, right?
That's true.
You can't have foreigners coming in here and doing business without paying their taxes, right?
Well, it's like the Internal Revenue Service is not listed as an agency under the Secretary of State.
That's right, because and let me explain, talk a little bit about your income tax, all right? Under the law of agency, the agent has a duty to report to the principal every year on an annual basis how the business is doing. And the income taxes that you pay are actually a franchise fee for operation of the agency. And if you're going to operate my damn vessel, if you're going to operate my agency, damn it, you're going to pay me. And you're going to follow my rules, damn it.
All right, but
right?
Yeah. So if we're operating as an agent in a business, we're going to have to read the laws under agency to understand what our
absolutely.
Absolutely.
You can go to Google Books and type in treaties on law of agency, and there should be a number of books you come up there you can download. Yes, some of them are older, but you will get a very good understanding how the law of agency works, especially concerning appointment, ratification, and the consequences of ratification.
Yeah, because if they're pulling us into court as an agent, okay,
right,
and we haven't sent the ticket or whatever the problem is, and we haven't sent the ticket to the Secretary of State or the governor, right?
Letter of resignation to the Secretary of State.
Well, not a letter of resignation. Let's say that they come after us with a
okay. Yeah, so if you're exactly. If you're the agent and somebody gives you service of process, notice, or command, your only obligation as registered agent is to forward to the foreign entity for which you are the registered agent any service of process, notice, or command. And you can see that, you can find that in 14A under registered office and registered agent, under duties and obligations of registered agent.
Okay, now say that our birth certificate is in, let's say, West Virginia, all right?
District of Columbia.
Oh, they're all considered District of Columbia?
Well, no, because it depends on your status.
Well,
you see, I've seen several birth certificates that had the name spelled correctly. I've seen some birth certificates that have one name spelled correctly and another name spelled in all capital letters. And it all depends on your citizenship. If your parents are a copyhold or a freeholder of property in the state, your status is different than that of a child who was born of unknown parentage. The child who was born of unknown parentage is an illegitimate child and automatically, by operation of law, becomes a citizen of the United States under the 14th Amendment and Equal Protection Clauses. He is a person and the person that gave him was that agency.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Let's go back to what I consider a standard birth certificate. The name at the top of the original birth certificate, the live birth certificate. Okay, because that's what they have a picture of a portion of that, not the whole thing. Okay, so it's got the name in capital letters at the top of the individual that was born. Okay, then it's got the father's name. Then it's got the mother's maiden name as the one who had the child, and then it's got the mother's married name as the one who made the report. Okay, now where is this? It's done in West Virginia. Okay, so where do they stand now? Do they stand in D.C. or do they stand in West Virginia?
Well, no. If you're of unknown parentage, you automatically, you don't have any rights in the state, because that state is for them and their posterity. If you're of unknown parentage, well, you must be, you automatically become a citizen of the United States.
Now what?
Automatically, and you can look under the United States Code for that, under Section 8, nationals and citizens at birth. If you scroll down, it says infants of unknown parentage or citizens of the United States. Automatically, because
in the particular
of the 14th Amendment.
In the particular situation, the way the birth certificate's filled out, the all-capital letter name with a mother maiden name and a father on there, that is not unknown parentage, is it?
Yes, because that's not the mother and father. They're not naming the mother and father. They're naming the custodians. If you go to Kentucky Revised Statute 213.051, which has the title head, Contents of Birth Certificate, if you go on to read, it says, the person who assumes custody of a live born infant of unknown parentage shall report on a form to the cabinet the following information, and 1, date and place of finding, 2, approximate age and birth date of the child, 3, to whom the child was placed with for care, 4, the name given to the child by the custodian of the child. All right, you see, that's why the state can come take your children, because they're claiming that they assumed custody and they merely appointed your parents as the custodial parents. And go look at the word parent in the legal dictionary. Not only does it mean mother and father of a natural child, of a man or woman, but it also says parent, an agency with which the child has been placed for care. That's a parent. And think about that. An agency for which the child has been placed for care. Well, isn't it the all-capital letter name of the mother there on the thing? So that's the agency name, the all-capital letter. So now that's a parent.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they play the word game. Go check out 213.051, and you'll get an understanding of why that birth certificate was created. Because if I'm born to a family that holds a freehold, for instance, here in this county, there's probably like 3 people who own this county, all right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by own it, I mean they hold the freehold, the allodial title. Everybody else is merely copy holders, and that's why they're listed as tenants.
Yeah.
Okay?
You sure have made a lot of things clear. Thank you very much. I'll sign out.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I put a lot of work into this, and it was just merely by coincidence that I learned about the agency and the registered organization and my relationship to it. And I understand exactly everything makes so much sense to me now. Everything does. I know why they do everything, because once you understand the law of agency, you'll know why the judge is doing what he's doing. You'll know why he's taking that property, because it's not your property, it's the state agency's property, and the registered agent ain't handling his business.
Well, now, as a man, don't I have the right to use this material when I find it necessary and then state that I'm not required to use it?
Use what?
Well, in other words, if I find it that it's useful to use the Social Security number, okay,
right,
for my benefit,
right, and you can.
If the Social Security number is a detriment to what I'm doing, then don't I have the right to deny that I'm using it?
Well, yes, you have the right. You're entitled. That's why they call them entitlements. And the reason you're entitled is because you are registered. You are part of it. You are incorporated into it. So therefore, you're entitled to these benefits.
Okay, well then.
But as you are entitled to these benefits, you are also obligated to follow the law regarding those benefits. And that's why you have to put a seatbelt on. That's why, because if you're going to operate an agency of the United States, we want you to have your seatbelt on, just like UPS would want their agents to have seatbelts on, because it takes less. If an accident happens, there's going to be less damage.
Yeah. Okay.
Less cost.
Let me
go about money.
Let me go study agency for a while, and I can see what I could work around this mess. Thank you.
Yeah. Look up treaties on the law of agency.
All right. Thank you.
And you'll understand what's going on then, my friend. As long as you understand that when you use that birth certificate and you signed the application for the driver's license, registered voter, or whatever it is, that document was sent to the Secretary of State and constitutes an acceptance for service of process, like Angela was saying on her change of registration card or change of address card. It says you agree to accept service process, because by law, when a registered agent changes his registered office, by law he has to notify the Secretary of State of that change.
And it's all done under fraud.
Well, no, it might be fraud for you, and it might be fraud for me, and it might be fraud for somebody else, but a lot of other people have not been injured, and if they have not been injured or damaged, they can't claim fraud. They've actually benefited greatly from it, you see?
Oh, actually, yes, I understand. Thank you.
It's an independent basis. Like I said earlier, the answer to every legal question is it depends. It depends. What's your status? What contracts do you have? I can't say the law for me is the same as you. I don't know what contracts you have. I don't know what rights you have signed away. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, you can't sign inalienable rights away. Bullshit. I call that bullshit. You can. If you sign a contract with me and you go into that contract with full knowledge and full disclosure of what your duties and obligations under that contract are, you better bet your ass that I'm going to sue your ass in court, and when we go to court, the judge is going to enforce that contract. Common law.
Okay. We've got one more. We've got one more question, and then we're going to call it a night. Okay, Ken?
Okay.
We'll have you on again. Go ahead, Niji. What's your question?
Yes, Ken, a couple of things. You mentioned that you have all of Black's. I have 12 gigabytes of law books and old dictionaries, and I did the books.google, but also archive.org.
Yes.
Wayback Machine has a lot of good stuff.
I have about 64 gigabytes.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so I altogether, I think I got like almost 40 law dictionaries.
Okay, and then you mentioned all governments are corporations, and I fully agree. But I challenge any state saying they have sovereign powers, because if I go through the Minnesota Judiciary, which is Minnesota Supreme Court, their parent company, as listed in Dun & Bradstreet, is Minnesota State of Inc., all uppercase.
All right. Well, that's where it gets into the business trust. And the business trust comes from the bankruptcy. A bankrupt state is treated like a business trust. And let me read this to you right here from Harvard. I think it's Tennessee School of Law. Let me read this to you 1 second so you guys can understand what I'm talking about here. And that ain't it.
While you're looking that up, another word that everybody should look at is safety, because it's always thrown at us. But safety isn't about getting in the car. The word safety is not about not getting a bone broken or head crushed. Safety is all about money. It's a commercial term. And when they say safety, it's prevent
like
commercial losses.
Yeah, when they say national security, you think that they're talking about being safe like we think? No, they're talking about security.
stocks and bonds.
That's right. All right, let me read this to you, and this is from University of Tennessee College of Law, Wake Forest Law Review, Volume 35, Issue 2, written in the summer of 2000. The purpose of this article is to show how the Bankruptcy Code authorizes the creation of a bankruptcy trust as a legal person. The filing of a petition under the Bankruptcy Code creates an estate consisting of enumerated property interests. The code also provides for the appointment of a trustee, a separate bankruptcy trustee in Chapter 11 or 12 cases. The debtor in possession with broad powers to act as the representative of the estate. The code does not, however, expressly define the status of the estate as a legal entity. Let me go on down here and read, because it talks about the business trust. And it's for I don't want to read the whole thing. But a business trust is where property is given to managers as principals to use the property for the benefit of the Sestacade Trust, which are given certificates. Look up business trust, common law trust, Massachusetts trust, because that's the trust that was created, and from that trust was given over to the state, which created the agency, you see?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. My phone just went so blank.
Okay.
I keep looking back to all the states claiming sovereign powers, and even the federal government only had sovereign powers delegated to it. And they've gone way beyond the scope of what you would consider sovereign powers. And you go right back to the cause of the 11th Amendment, which is Chisholm v. Georgia. And if you look at all, I believe it was 5
you have to understand, Congress has, I'm sure you've heard this, that there are two national governments, one government limited to by the Constitution, and one government which is not limited by the Constitution. The government that is not limited to the Constitution is the business trust called the United States Incorporated, and it acts as a business trust. You see what I'm saying? So it's a whole different entity, and Congress has the unlimited power to regulate interstate commerce, and that's where they get you, is the interstate commerce, operating a foreign entity of the United States in your state, and you're the registered agent for the registered organization, and your residence is the registered office. Now you're in interstate commerce. Now you fall under the direct jurisdiction of Congress. And that's how they do it.
I sure do. Thank you. It's been a very nice night.
Anyone else, Angela?
Is that it then?
No, that'll be it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We've gone 2 minutes. I think we should call it a night. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing information with us. It was very kind of you. And we'll have you on again. Please send me all your stuff that you want me to. If you like, do you want people to contact you or?
Yeah, you can. If anybody wants to
give
send
out
me
your email.
Anything, you can send it to me at actingexecutor@yahoo.com.
Acting Executor.
Acting Executor. ACTINGEXECUTOR at Yahoo. That's it.
I'm typing it in. Okay, great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Freeman, True Freeman. And I see Carl here. Carl just showed up, but he's just ending the call, Carl.
There's
a lot of.
Go ahead.
Who? Carl. You know Carl Lentz?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard him on the show a few times, and he's absolutely right when it comes to making a claim and as distinguished from making a complaint. He's absolutely right.
I have to have him on so he can tell us about his little trek to Britain and his new puppy. Again, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. It's been fun. It's been a good call. I hope the recording works this time. I should mention that TalkShoe is upgrading or doing some kind of change on the website, so you're not able to get into the archive for the last couple of days anyway. Started out and back to normal. Like I was saying, I added a whole bunch of links to different TalkShoe calls that are Dr. Boombender is having his. They posted it. What was the creditors in commerce? Call they're having. Where's hearsay? You can check back on the of this chat room to get it, or go to my TalkShoe website. Go to my website, myprivateaudio.com. TalkShoe guide. All the links are there to all the different calls that all week long. Carl has his call on Saturday, but I didn't see one scheduled. Are you all this week, Carl?
Well, all right, Angela, if you like me to speak on the show again, just give me a heads up or something, and I'll see what I can work out.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I will.
And I do have a saying,
all
right? And that's God bless America, and to hell with the United States.
Oh, okay. That one, I don't think. God bless. Hell with the government. Anyway, I love you. We'll see you next time. Oh, last the wrong name. It's Michael James Anthony, who passed away. I think and what else? I don't know. I was going to make a few corrections. Oh, on the call with Santos Bonacci, I was telling him about the original 13th Amendment, but I said there were no titles of marquis, and it was supposed to be titles of nobility. I don't know why I said marquis. So anyway, I make typos.
Well, that's
verbally.
Pronounced Mark.
Huh?
That's pronounced Mark.
Mark, yeah. Well, it looks like marquis. Anyway, I have a lot to learn yet still. All right, everybody.
All right.
God bless you, and Happy New Year.
You.
Thank you. I hope everybody is off to a good start. Bye-bye. We'll see you next time, and that's a wrap.